AutoCraft's archive is officially live. It is mainly a collection of all of the perimeter decorations that are on AutoCraft. So if you were ever interested in picking up one of these, now would be the best time to do so. Visit the website linked down below. Alright, so today we are going to be starting on the project that's probably going to take, if I had to guess, around about a month if we were to continuously work on this nonstop and everything like that. That's if I had to guess. It could take longer, could take shorter. I have no idea. As you can see on the right there, we are getting a bunch of piston uses going up, which means that a bunch of pistons are being placed. If I hit this map right here, you will see that we're starting the process of placing all the pistons across the very first layer. Now this outline right here, this is all the pumpkins. This is exactly the 1K by 1K mark of the perimeter, if you wanted to know that. A little bit overhead, that's because we needed to have room for the bedrock breaker itself. So yeah, it's a two overhead bedrock breaker. Now, you guys are probably wondering, but Squishy, there's one overhead bedrock breaker that is out. Yes, but the very important thing here, because we have such a large area, we wanted a breaker that would work for us without using the piston. And it just so happens that Desu created one of those breakers that doesn't require lazy chunks. If you remember in the past, these breakers that recycle the pistons required lazy chunks. And not only not made the breaker itself a lot harder to build, also not really feasible for server settings, as you could have people accidentally load it and boom, there go all your pistons for that layer, or for that slice. But with this new breaker, we do not need lazy chunks. So that is the main advantage of this breaker. And I did actually get access to this schematic early before it was released, thanks to Desu, so huge shout out to them. Because without that, this project would not be started until that breaker is released. Now, this video will not be released until after Desu's video, that way I can give proper credit to them and link you to their original video, which I definitely wanted to do in the first place, and especially if I'm getting something access early, I will be not doing anything with it until I get the go-ahead from them in the first place. So it is not my design, and I will not try to take credit for something that I have not done. But yeah, so the full breaker is done, besides me needing to do the long hopper lines to the edge there, but that can wait. We'll do a little bit more hopper lines, then I'll launch the breaker here. But yeah, pistons are being placed. That is taken care of by this water stream right here. That is all the way down at the end here. That is feeding the pistons to the piston bot there, which we will keep track of how many pistons they will place. They should place a little bit over 5 million pistons within this whole break-in project, including the overhead. So I think it's going to be around like 5.2 million pistons. Quite possibly, that's what I'm thinking. It could be a little bit more, a little bit less. I don't know. I didn't do the math. The total amount of pistons that are breaking out. Even with this amazing breaker, because it is not a loop breaker like Desktop Folders one originally that did use lazy chunks, what we need to do here is we have to still place one full layer of pistons across the perimeter. But what that does mean, though, is yes, we have an initial investment of around a little bit over 1 million pistons for this project. The big thing is that we only need 1 million pistons compared to, let's say, the 5.5 million pistons it would have taken to clear all 5 layers. I don't know about you, but 1 million sounds a lot better than 5 million. This is why I'm so hyped for this project with this, breaker here, because it's only going to cost a small amount compared to what it used to cost. I don't know. This is obviously this is a fairly early version of the breaker, because it's not released yet. So maybe someone will adapt it at some point to become a loop breaker. I don't know entirely, but as of right now, it is not a loop breaker, which I am perfectly fine with, because we already had all the pistons, at least for one layer here. So this works perfectly fine in our use case. So yeah, this player right here is just placing pistons, and we have this reason pumpkins for the water stream. That way we can break it as we go, and we don't need to worry about anything like that. The slime part right here isn't part of this piston placer. This is all me. It's because I wanted to detect at the end once it reaches that way it stops, and we don't place more pistons than needed for that very reason. That's all that bottom part slime does. It'll just go to the end and be detected, and then put the redstone block right into there. That way it'll just stop and not go any further. But yeah, enough rambling. Again, big thank you to Desu again for allowing me to have access to the breaker sooner than it was released. So that's allowed me to get a head start on this project, because it's going to take an extremely long amount of time for this breaker to go across all 5 layers. I don't know if we'll be able to do it all in one video. Depends on when Desu's video is released, of course. If it's released before these layers are all done, then it'll probably be a couple layers only that we get finished. But once that's done, of course, we will have all 5 layers out there, and that would be absolutely amazing. But yeah, so let me just get these hoppers in place, and we'll go and test the breaker, which I am very nervous about because, like I said, it's a long breaker. So if anything goes wrong, we have to basically rebuild the breaker at that point, and then place the pistons in manually, which would be quite annoying. But I did verify the schematic there, so we should be good. And with the piston placer, unless I were to slightly modify it to go a little bit differently, then we have to continue with this design and only place the hoppers as far as we can get. Now, it doesn't really matter because the piston placer is faster than the breaker itself, but I do want to have enough buffer so that I can run it and not have to worry about it too much. The good thing is the breaker will never catch up to the piston placer. Piston placer moves forward about roughly every 3.5 minutes. It'll move forward to the next slice, but it's still going to take 57 hours for that breaker to reach the end of a layer, let alone this breaker, or that piston placer reach the end, let alone compared to the breaker right here. So yeah, this hopper line here is to transport the items that we get from the breaker all the way down, and we'll have a shulker box loader. Actually, I can't really finish. I can't launch the breaker until I have this all good. So you have to modify this. I'm not going to be able to start the breaker in this clip right here. But then the next clip, we'll see the breaker working. I have to modify this to go above the hopper line here. That way we can still send this off and everything like that. So I will do that, and we'll be back to start the breaker. Alright, so I am very nervous, but very excited to start first layer of bedrock breaking here for this 1K by 1K void perimeter project. But yeah, all I gotta do is pick this one redstone block right here, and we start to use a little over 5 million pistons. And we're not actually gonna be breaking 5 million bedrock. If you don't know how to calculate how much bedrock you're gonna break, basically the way bedrock generates is it's 20% bedrock on the first layer, and it goes to 40%, 60%, 80%, and then 100%. So all you gotta do is take 20% of your first layer, which obviously, with this overhead here, we have 2 block overhead, so we have to add 2 blocks to each of that. So our final layer is 998 by 998 in terms of the size that we're going to break all the bedrock there. So we'll do that, which 100% of that is bedrock. Then we'll do 1,000 by 1,000, and then times that by 80%, and then so on and so forth for your overhead to get the amount of bedrock that you're actually going to break in your bedrock breaking project. So I'll do that, and I'll put a number on the screen here of what it actually is, the amount of bedrock we're actually breaking, compared to the amount of pistons that we will be using. But there's a very big important thing there. We are only going to have to craft around 1.2 million pistons for this whole project. And you might say, why is that the case? Well, with this new breaker that Desu has created here, we have a hopper minecart down in this little honey section over here. That gets pushed into the block where the bedrock is being broken and grabs that piston entity. That way we can recycle it, in a sense. We can reuse it for the next time. So yes, it's a huge initial investment of around 1.2 million pistons for this project itself, but that's so much better compared to the 5 and a bit million that it would cost to do the whole thing without any recycling of the pistons. So that is 100% worth it to me, and probably will be for this whole server. That way, with this Bedrock breaker, we never need to use pistons ever again for Bedrock again. All we need to do is keep, well, we'll keep all, like, about 1 million pistons in reserve. That way, in case we ever do some stupid project, like where we require a little over 1 million pistons for one layer, we already have that crafted. And we never need to craft pistons ever again for these projects, which would be really, really, really nice. And we can use redstone to focus on other things like observers and others, like observers, repeaters, and comparators, things that actually we could also use but not recycle later down the line. So yeah, enough rambling and stalling. I'm actually going to start the Bedrock breaker here. Like I said, I'm extremely nervous because I've never made one of these before, and we're just gonna have to see if it works. And yeah, here we go. 3, 2, 1, and break. You can kind of see and you can't even see the entity there. It gets picked up immediately because the hopper minecart. And we have 4 hopper minecarts there. Obviously, without that, we would fill them up, and then we wouldn't be able to collect any after a certain point. So there's 4 hopper minecarts there. That way we have 20 slots of pistons, which is more than 1,000 blocks. So we are perfectly fine there to not have to worry about missing any pistons, and therefore not recycling them later down the line. But yeah, like I said, this looks pretty decent as of right now. I obviously can't tell. We'll have to wait till it gets back. And it will take also quite a bit of time for it to reach the end. The main thing here, as long as this piston placer is faster than this, then we don't have nothing to worry about, because they won't be able to catch up to each other. But yeah, we'll wait till it gets to the end, and we'll show off the other part over there, as that's sort of what makes this breaker a lot more interesting than the current breakers. So let's have a lot different wiring over there, because we need to get the hopper minecarts out of there and cycle them back. Alright, so we're coming up the end of the line here, and we got the breaker all the way down. Now we get to see the interesting part of not only just returning the flying machine back, but also how we get the hopper minecarts that are currently out of there and swap them out with the new ones. That way we give time for the pistons to be unloaded in those hoppers currently. So yeah, that's the whole reason for that hopper line right there, to transport the collected pistons to a shulker loader. If you wanted to reload that into a shulker, which is probably the best option for you, you can do that. But yeah, let's see the return here. We get the minecarts out. So first thing it's going to do is going to send the main flying machine part back. Duper's up top. Then it's going to move that big piston feed tape over there. Then we send another flying machine down to pick up the hopper minecarts. Then the one that moves the pistons back will go do that. But what we do here now is that we swap out the hopper minecarts that are stuck there. Alright, so everything should be fixed here. Very important thing is, obviously, I had these carts aligned correctly down here, so that was not the issue with the breaker. On the other side here, the very important thing is that you actually put the minecarts in the correct way. Because the very important thing is they need to be aligned properly, or else they would get shot everywhere like that happened in the previous clip, compared to what they're supposed to do is sit on top of that stair that gets pushed up. So we're gonna go fly over there real quick and show what it's supposed to look like when you do it, and how to actually do it if you were to use this breaker yourself. Which I assume a lot of people who do large bedrock breaking projects will probably do, because it's so valuable at this scale to do something like this. So yeah, so what I did originally was I put a dummy rail on that block there and placed the minecarts in as there. What I also did to test it before was I put a slime block here, put a rail on top, and then put the minecarts on there, and then broke that, of course, and then put the stair back. That will not work. The only way to do it that I've found to work so far is to place all your minecarts on that powered rail, power it, let them get across, and then as long as they are against that block, then that works. I don't know why, but that's what I found to work perfectly fine without you needing to build that part from the start twice and send the minecarts over that way. So yeah, everything is good now. Of course, we have these here. That's just to help place with the piston placer, because I did modify it to go around if you were to use this as well and you want to have the bedrock picker running as you're still placing the pistons. All you need to do is move this piston from on top of this slime block here to the side, and then move this observer up one. This observer I think is down right here. Move this observer up one, move this piston onto the side there, and then just link it around the hopper stream. Why you need to do it and move the piston over one block is because you're at push limit here. So if I have the piston back in this one and I put it here, we're at 13 blocks. Actually, I think the piston is down at this level here. Same with the observer. So you have to move this extra slime block up, observer, piston right there on the side. That way your piston's one block closer than being over here. If you do that, that way this will wrap around and you'll only be at 12 blocks at this sticky piston here, which of course is what you want. That way you're not at 13 because it won't be able to move forward. You can't add any extra delay or else this first one will break and then you'll basically just break the whole thing. So it has to be just this one piston right here, which you can do by just slightly modifying this piston placer here. But yeah, everything is all good to go. I'm going to launch it again. Then once it gets back over here, we'll come back and make sure it's working. And once that's all good, then we can just let the bedrock breaker run. I did also add a shulker box loader at the end of this line here. So over here we have a shulker box loader. That way we can obviously store the rest of the pistons that we get back from this breaker. That way we can reuse them for the next layer. So obviously each layer gets smaller and smaller, so there's less pistons you'll need. But obviously we want to get all the pistons that we possibly can, which is the whole reason why we are using this breaker. But yeah, everything is all good. This breaker is hopefully working perfectly fine. And we have all the extra materials if we need to do so. Let me just see if I can get any of the one pumpkin I think is in here from, yep. If I can get that out. I did add a sorter at the end for everything, so that shouldn't really be an issue if you do that. So with the box loader, I just added a sorter onto it. That way, any of the pumpkins that get broken at the end there, when I had those there for the piston placers, I had that just in case. So yeah, we should be good to go now. But also got to time how long it takes to complete one whole layer. That way, if you wanted to do the math, you could also do that for yourself. Obviously, piston placer for 1,000 blocks is around 57 hours. This is going to be a lot more than 57 hours, I can tell you that. But yeah, let's give it a go. Everything is all in place now, and we can actually start it up again. So I will see you back on the other side once everything is working. The first bedrock, as you see, did actually break all of it, which is also a good thing I didn't mention in the first clip. But the bedrock is being broken, which is the main thing. But yeah, pistons are being collected as well, so I'll see you at the other side once we get the breaker over there. Alright, so the machine's coming over it, and it's looking like it's going to be around 8.5 minutes to go the full stretch of the perimeter for, I believe it's a 1014 by 1014 area here. So take that math as you will. That, of course, is only for the one direction here. That doesn't include the other side back, which I will, of course, see at the end. But yeah, looking to be around about 8 minutes and 15 seconds, actually, for it to go all the way across one side. So I'm going to say about 8 minutes and 30 seconds until this whole side is done. You can see, there we go. Minecarts are up in the air on that stair, perfectly as they should be. We should see the new minecarts be swapped out with the current ones, then sent back on its way. So this one should go over and get pushed across. There they go. And then the new ones went sent down, aligned perfectly in that block right there. And then now, if we go into the hoppers up here, we should also see that there are pistons being unloaded and transported over. I don't understand currently the point of there being 2 hopper lines here. I think one will be fine, but I'm not going to question it. Continue with how the schematic is. And yeah, so we got a bunch of minecarts now being unloaded here, which of course is there. And now we're back on our way to the other side. And that's the exact reason why I added the sorter at the end there, because of those pumpkins. Some of them could get collected by that right there, which we do not want. So yeah, that's, make sure you align the carts perfectly. This one, a bit difficult. Not difficult, it's pretty straightforward, but you just have to know how to actually get them in that spot and for them to work properly. You have to place them on that rail, power the rail, then get them across there. You can't drop them in or place a dummy rail there and stack them like that. You have to put them over there and use the power that rail to put them in place. And Desu probably should have a video on this now, but as I'm in the early stages of the Bedrock Bigger and it's not fully released yet, I kind of have to come up with things as I go. So I don't want to bug Desu about it too much, because, like I said, they did give me access to the schematic early, which I greatly appreciate. Because if this is anything to go by, it's probably going to be around 15 minutes for a single slice, if not close to 20 for this perimeter, which is going to be quite a bit if you couldn't really do that math yourself real quick. So yeah, once this gets back, I'll get all the math done, and then we'll see how long this is actually going to take for us to complete here. If we average it out with no downtime in between and just strictly break in Bedrock. And it's looking to be around about 17 minutes per 1014 by 1014, which is a little bit crazy, more than I thought that would do. So yeah, that's gonna be quite a bit of time per layer. I'm thinking it's gonna be 17,000 minutes per layer. And if we divide that by 60, that's 287 hours. Divide that by 24 hours in a day, we get around about 12 days to clear just a single layer of bedrock here. 12 days. I'm gonna put that in chat, that way I know. And as you can see in the chat, I did also calculate how much bedrock we'd actually be breaking in this perimeter with this project. It'd be just over 3 million bedrock. Of course, that is a little bit more pistons, because we need a piston per block, even though there's not a piece of bedrock per block. But this is how it has to be. So yeah, 3 million pistons, 3 million bedrock broken, and you would use around about 5.2 million pistons, I think it would be, with this current overhead. Maybe a little bit more. But yeah, that's the huge benefit of this breaker here. We only have the initial investment of the first layer, and then we're good to go. We don't need to worry about crafting any more pistons, which is a huge help, which it might not seem to you guys like it is, but if you do your own bedrock breaking projects, you know longest part is not only the time you need to wait for the bedrock to be broken, but also the investment of all the piston. But yeah, it looks like we're working here again. I'm just going to make sure before I go to bed that this is working. That way I can guarantee when I wake up, we're not just sitting somewhere and it's being idle, wasting more time, because we already have 12 days. We don't need to take any longer for each layer. So yeah, what we're going to do is actually, once this piston placer reaches about halfway, what I'm going to do is build another breaker there, start that one up. That way we only have the breakers going half the distance. That should also speed up the process for the break-in. That way we're not waiting for just one breaker to go the full 1,014 blocks. What we'll do is split that up. That way we can start doing more layers as they go, hopefully down the line. Of course, I can't launch the next layer of piston placers until this first one is close to completing, because it's going to take around about a day to get to the center itself, since 57 hours divided by 2, a little over 24 hours for the piston placer to reach that middle point, which we of course will get to at some point as well. But yeah, also we can't really do the piston placer anyway until the last one finishes, because obviously this one is there, and if it's only one block lower, then we can't do anything with that, unfortunately. Unless we were to mirror the breaker, of course. That way we have the other breaker going like this, but we'll have to wait and see what we need to do with that. We can at least start the piston placer at the very least, but we'll go from there. So yeah, that's it, basically it for right now. Guess I got a lot of time to go in between, but maybe we'll do some progress updates, because I usually don't do those. I usually just cut to the end of the project. This one going to be months, at least a minimum of a month for us to do everything. If we were to speed it up, I'm going to estimate probably around 2 months, which is why it was so vital that that's why I'm so thankful that we got access to the schematic early. That way I could start this huge project off before the breaker was actually released. So again, huge thank you to Desu. I'm not going to say it enough this episode. Desu is coming in clutch for this episode, and mainly not just this episode, but all the episodes in the future where we do Bedrock again, because we will be using this. So yeah, let's go get some more work done and come back once the first maybe day or so is completed of Bedrock again. Alright, so about 2 days have passed since the last clip, and we are getting closer and closer to at least finishing the pistons for the first layer. As you can see on the right here, this will finish, like I said, around about 1.1 million, I believe, once we get to this last pumpkin over here. So it's a little bit further to go than I would like to, but of course it is still a work in progress. But you can also see just how far, or how small, depending on how you look at it, that this initial bedrock breaker that we started has got. So yeah, there is quite a bit of bedrock actually broken here, and the best part about that we'll see in a little bit. But yeah, so we definitely I don't think we have to get rid of the lava here. I think when we build the next one, it'll just move that line of sticky piston there. Basically, in a sense, just deleting it as of right there. But yeah, that's the good part about that, because otherwise we need to launch like a flying machine to go and remove that, which I really don't want to do, because that's even more stuff to do with that at that point. So we're going to try it out for the next layer once we get to that point, obviously, because it's going to take a little bit. Hopefully when we get to that, we can see if it will start to remove the lava without breaking the breaker and causing block updates to pistons that we do not want. But yeah, first breaker right there, still going strong. And we also just got the second breaker to start as well. So yeah, this will decrease the amount of time, about roughly half, might be a little bit less because of how long it took me to get this second breaker working, unfortunately. So as you can see, the piston placer was quite far ahead compared to this. This is unfortunate to when I had time to actually build the breaker, so it is what it is. It's going to be probably around 7 days compared to the 12 initial days that I'm thinking we're going to do it. So as long as, well, either way, it'll probably be about 8 days, unfortunately, for this first layer compared to the 7 days that it could take. So like I said, it's going to take about a day just to get to about halfway. So we're about halfway, and then I will build the next breaker. That mainly just so that we can have the same hopper line on that side, and we can't really have the breaker in place until the piston placer goes by it, just because of where some of the stuff is positioned for the breaker. But yeah, going strong still. The best part about this, we'll go look at the end right here. Well, from the first clip, we have our first shulker box of pistons recovered. And now we have close to, I want to say, about 170,000 pistons recovered so far, which means we've also used around 175,000 pistons as well, because obviously with this breaker, we get 100% of the pistons back that we actually use, which is one of the best things in terms of TMC for bedrock breaking. Otherwise, it's one bedrock or one piston per bedrock, and most of the time you don't get any of that back, because manually gathering that as the breaker goes is pretty annoying, especially on this scale. So yeah, and this time we probably, if you account for the lengthwise and then put it into a square, we've probably broken more bedrock than a 272 millimeters first layer fairly easily. But yeah, still got a little bit ways to go. This probably has, it's about 3 minutes per slice, so if I had to guess, at least another 6 hours until this is fully done. So maybe when I wake up, the piston placer will be broken, or not broken, it'll be stopped rather. That way we can get the rest of this all taken out of the way, and then maybe start at least building it for the next layer, because we can't start it until, unfortunately, all this first layer is basically gone, because placing all the pistons for this takes about 57 hours alone. So if we can start it over there before this one finishes, then we can start getting some stuff going faster. That way we can decrease the amount of time it will totally take for it. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to start the breaker because we need to redo this line over here and redo all that stuff over there. But we could at least get the piston placer, or the piston placer itself built. That will take, I think it took me around about an hour and a half to 2 hours to build this, and I'm only to get faster at it, so we shall see once that time comes. But yeah, enough rambling for me. Now it's kind of just a waiting game until we can get the next one all good to go. So I might work on some other projects in the meantime. Yeah, I might work on some other projects in the meantime. Might be projects on here, might be projects in a testing world, so we shall see. Alright, so a few weeks have passed by. This time we have everything down. We're on the second to last layer, which means we have done 3 full layers of bedrock breaking across this 1K by 1K perimeter so far, and we're just about to start the 4th layer. Unfortunately, I've been doing some things out and about. I haven't been able to really babysit this the best I could and maximize the amount of time in between working on each layer and things like that. So obviously nothing's happening right now. I could have already built the next, piston placer and things like that, have that running and everything like that, but I haven't been able to fully been 100% on this project like I wanted to. Just unfortunately with some way some things have gone, but we are going to get to it. Yeah, it's still much faster that we're using multiple, I think a minimum 2 bedrock breakers per layer. So it's still much faster than it would be with just a single breaker. So that's nothing to be worried about. And yeah, so not much to do left. Like I said, a couple more layers and we're done. Then we'll get to working on the wall decoration. So yeah, let's get back to the grind. I'm going to go stream again, building up the 4th piston placer here across the 1K perimeter. And then we'll be right back to the Bedrock brick in another 6 days or so. And everything will be done there. And we'll be back to finally finishing off the 5th layer, which maybe we can get a time lapse for, depending on everything like that. But I might be away depending on when that starts. So we shall see. Alright, so I made it about 4 weeks later. We are finally at the Y0 Bedrock here. And we're about to launch the first breaker up to. We've been doing half and half. So this one will be one of the last breakers that we have to build here. Just verify the schematic on stream here. And now it's time to actually launch it. So lower the sounds here because TNT is loud. Lovely. Launch it here, send it across, and we should start to see void as well. Obviously the piston placer is also going. They are just a little bit over 4 million now. We should get that finally over 5 million with just this perimeter here. This piston one guy is just for this perimeter alone. Wanted to keep track of just, you know, the pistons placed for this one compared to ones we've used previously for Bedrock breakers. So yeah, break this redstone block and we're heading on to the final one now. And there we go. The void is now visible. It's crazy. So yeah, about 6 days. Definitely have to do that. About 6 days or so, and we will be fully done with the break-in of this project here. So we'll basically cut back once we are fully done, and we have a 1000 by 1000 of complete void. We will no longer need our outline here to signify what is what. So yeah, finish this off on stream. A few days time, we will be fully done. And just like that, a whole month and a bit later, we are fully done the 1K by 1K perimeter here. And we are greeted by the sun in the empty void that would be here instead. Now this is a sight to be seen. I'm currently on 20 render distance, and we still can't see anything farther out, which is crazy to think about. And we're of course on wide 10, so there's a little bit more space for reaction time. That way, you know, obviously you couldn't even tell really where you are anyways, because, you know, you're in a void. So good luck finding anywhere inside this perimeter. But in the next and final episode of this 3-part series of the 1K by 1K void perimeter project, we will be having walls here. That way we can sort of wrap this area up, because we can't really do a floor decoration. It would be pretty much useless to clear the void out and then build a floor on top of it. So we won't be doing that. What we're going to be doing instead is making some cool wall decoration themed around AutoCraft. That way, you know, we can tie it all together and wrap this project up. So yeah, that's pretty much all for this episode here. Make sure you like, subscribe, all sort of things, and I will see you guys in the last final part of the 1K perimeter project.